Montana, Manning, Rodgers, I'll throw another name out there. If you remove running from the game, I think I'd rather have Drew Brees than Lamar. If we're just talking about passing, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Drew Brees. Do you guys
Last year, Lamar Jackson had the fourth best passer rating ever in a season. And only two players have done it more, Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning.
And if he threw for, and last year he threw for over 4,000 yards first time in his career. If that's who he is moving forward, then we can start talking about him on this list. Right now, he's not in the top dozen of passers in the history of the league. And you agree with me?
Well, like I said, if you want to say maybe it's a little premature, but I think he's getting better.
Yeah.
And his career, those weren't numbers, those rankings from last year. They were rankings from his career. They don't throw it a lot, not just because he can't throw. They don't throw it as much because he's such a great runner.
Correct, but don't you also think that part of the way he is defended and part of the way their offense works has to do with the running piece of it? That because defenses are so, and this is why he's a great player.
41 touchdowns last year.
And Brew, when you're saying he wasn't a good passer, he threw 36. His first year as a starter, he threw 36. And you're saying he wasn't a good passer yet. And he had a passer rating that was an all-time high one there. And you're saying he wasn't a good passer yet. Like, this is what happens with the media and the coach and Lamar. Ben Solak says he's the MVP every year, writes the article. Harbaugh says he's going to be the greatest player of all time, and he's as good a passer as anybody ever. And then somebody is like, okay, none of us actually believe any of that. Like, we don't, nobody.
But the numbers do back it up.
No.
Okay. And so this is what I wanted to do a follow-up for, because we had talked about this a little bit before, but there were some interesting comments that came from that initial video, and I talked about in that video that does the definition of what a great passer is need to evolve. I welcome when we back ourselves in corners for the sake of conversation, right? I mean, it's the definition of barbershop talk. When we're like, who would you rather have? Oh, you know, if you could have LeBron James and Shaq, you know, going up against MJ and, you know, Jokic, or, you know, whatever it is. It's just like we back ourselves in corners just for the sake of conversation. And it could be interesting. It could be thought-provoking. And even a conversation like this really falls in that category, because we're saying strictly passing, nothing else, strictly passing, taking away the mobility of your legs. But this is what's interesting to me, though. This is where I don't even know what the true parameters are of this conversation. Because when we say take away legs, a lot of times when we're talking about someone like a Lamar, we're talking about like his ability to like obviously rip off a run, right? You know, he can literally rip off like a 75-yard run here. But like, what about just scrambling and moving around in the pocket to begin with? Like, and that's what's makes it interesting to me, because one day, who knows when this will officially kind of happen, but like every single quarterback will have a degree of mobility. Obviously, not everyone will be able to run like a Lamar or a Kyler or a Josh Allen, right? There's going to be all different degrees, but like it feels to me that we're going to reach a part in the NFL where the bare minimum of mobility is going to be that of a Baker Mayfield, can't think of anyone else. I had someone else in my mind, but now I lost it. But like a level of like a Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, right? Quarterbacks who are clearly mobile, who can clearly kind of run around a little bit, can scramble, can buy some time, but they're nowhere near on the level of a Lamar. And it's going to be like anything, right? It's going to be a spectrum of unbelievable talent and kind of just like, all right, pretty good. But it does feel like the Jared Goffs of the world, Kirk Cousins, etc., are just not going to be the thing. Because even someone like Michael Penix, who does not move anywhere close as well as like, say, like a Jaden Daniels, you could see it, because I'm excited to see what Penix can do this season. And when I watch his first 3 games, and I'm very high on him, but I'm like, ooh, like he definitely does not have the same level of mobility that like you've started to really grown accustomed to, just being like a base level of mobility. And maybe that can evolve, maybe that can grow a little bit. You know, it's like I said, it was only 3 games for that sample size. But with Lamar Jackson, it's fascinating to me because I showed a clip of this before, and I want to show it again. It's a short clip about Sean McVay talking about Matthew Stafford and what makes him, what he was able to do, and typically what we mean when we talk about like a great passer. And then I want to follow it up with then a clip from Lamar Jackson and just, kind of start to have the conversation as like in 2025, what's more important? So just take a listen to what Sean McVay has to say here.
This guy does subtle things that you really have to appreciate the intricacies of the game to really understand. For example, watching the Philly game back again, we're running across the board concept where you got a quick game concept and you're progressing back to a 5-step, route combination. We get a 3D sim against Philadelphia. We put FIB formation in the boundary. We jet motion across. They do a nice job in one of their 3D sims of being able to cover our flat stick. So he resets. Their backside end is the hook dropper. And we've got from the number 2 player coming backside a basic cut. And it's so subtle, you wouldn't even notice it. And he's able to, just like he did to Von Bell in the Super Bowl.
The coolest no look ever.
And he's able to hold Nolan Smith to expand him, boom, to be able to dot it on Puka Nacua for a big positive gain. And you're like, oh, he just, works across the board at a basic. And it's like, no, mother, it was not like that. He actually manipulated a weak side hook player coming from on the line of scrimmage in a simulated fire zone. And he made it looked like a routine play outstanding because of the intricacies of how he plays. Those are the things that you talked about that, like, you don't take that stuff for granted. And I know I don't either.
And like I said in my original video when we kind of talked about this, is that's an aspect of what makes Stafford special. And that's just one aspect when we talk about someone like being like, a passer and something that Lamar Jackson can do to a degree, obviously, but someone like a Stafford or Mahomes will do it better than a Lamar Jackson. Not to say that he's not going to continue to grow. It's not going to say that he can't, eventually get there, but it's okay to say that someone like Lamar Jackson is not, 99, 99, 99, 99, 99 on every single metric possible. And so someone like a Stafford has really honed in on that skill set. And this is where someone like a Lamar Jackson and a Jalen Hurts and a Josh Allen, they're going to use their mobility in a way that someone like a Stafford is just not typically going to utilize. Even like a CJ Stroud. And this is what I always talk. I love, because I couldn't find the clip. I was trying to find it before, but like Greg Cosell really talked about like CJ Stroud being like an elite playmaker from the pocket. And that when I saw that clip before, it was like last offseason, it really made me realize that we define playmaking more often than not like a quarterback with using their legs, really scrambling, like just doing a lot of scrambling, whether it's to extend a play, buy some time in the pocket, like that's often what we, really see. Barreling over someone, jumping, right? Like Saquon Barkley literally jumping and spinning back. We're like, that's playmaking, that's game breaking, but like not necessarily from the pocket. And what I think Sean McVay did, he illustrated that, so beautifully. And again, it's not to say that someone like Lamar is not an unbelievable playmaker from the pocket, but it's not ultimately what makes him special. It's not ultimately what he does best, because he has this skill set that someone like Stafford, Burrow, Cousins, whatever, name any of the quarterbacks you want, Patrick Mahomes, does not have this, okay? This is, like, this right here was without a doubt one of the greatest plays I've ever seen in football, ever, in my entire life. And it involves Lamar Jackson. I mean, this was that scramble, like, stiff arm. It's 38-28, fourth quarter, second and goal, 5 minutes, 32 seconds left. You can see where the line of scrimmage is, so you can see how far back he already got. I mean, like, practically every quarterback, honestly, probably every single quarterback, except for maybe Josh Allen, who would be strong enough to just, like, endure a little bit, is just not getting away from this. But then you see Lamar, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, look, he's continuing to go back even further now. Both hands on his arm. Lamar's just going straight up backwards. Like, in any other situation, you're showing this film and saying, don't go backwards. Like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. But just like we see Steph, where it's just like, that's a bad shot for every other person in the history of the NBA. It's like, this is a bad play for every quarterback in the history of the NFL except for Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's literally able to stiff arm him to the ground. And now he's even, again, he continues to go even further back. The line of scrimmage was like around the 15-yard line. He's back at the 25. And now, two Bengals in his face. He's down the sideline, being squeezed out, throwing off 1 foot. And sometimes 1 foot throws you can still get like a lot. Like, sometimes, a throw off your 1 foot, like, it's a little bit overrated. Honestly, just like kind of one-handed catches, like they're not all created equally. But you can see just even by how he's had to release it, hands in his face, he could not get the same level of oomph from his lower body. And what a lot of people don't realize, like, so much of your power comes from your lower body, whether you're hitting, whether you're throwing, whatever it may be. And so he could only get so much. He could barely even really have the follow through. If anything, like, so much of this is just like forearm strength and like fingertip strength. Like, it's pretty wild. But he's at the 20 now. He's got to let it rip. And this is where it ends up. I mean, he throws an absolute perfect ball. 3 Bengals surrounding him. Just an absolute. I mean, it's the one play that is there for him. And because even there where you see he's a little bit open, the ball would have probably would have potentially had enough airtime in there where now someone else in the Bengals would have maybe been able to potentially disrupt it. Also, it's just like I said, the type of throw that Lamar Jackson even had to make. It's just because it was all like, there's some 1-footed throws that you could throw probably like 60 yards down the field. Like, that was not one of them. Like, this was just kind of like, I gotta will this ball to where it is. And he did it, and it was just, like I said, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. I mean, he catches it, and again, that angle, it's always tough sometimes when you're looking at it from the side like that. It's just like, as soon as he caught it, he's just immediately met. It's just all in one motion, immediate with contact. It's a tighter throw than it like originally looks, until you kind of really see it land, catch, and how it's just immediate contact. And it's just one of the most amazing things you could ever really witness on a football field, honestly. I mean, look how much he's being grabbed. I mean, like, this is not easy. And so, yes, the Staffords of the world, the Drew Breeses of the world and whatnot, on a pure passing ability, you can probably make the argument can deliver a more accurate ball from the pocket at a higher rate, can do things at a higher level like Sean McVay went through, but they're not even close to being able to do anything even remotely what Lamar Jackson did in that last, in that highlight that I showed you. And so it's just like, doesn't that have to be factored in? Not when we're talking about great quarterbacks, because that's the thing, right? You could truly believe in your heart of all hearts that Drew Brees is an absolute better passer of the ball than Lamar Jackson. That is just an absolute true statement, undeniable statement. But that it's an undeniable statement that you would want to have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback over Drew Brees every single time. That there would be zero situations that you would ever take Drew Brees over Lamar Jackson. But what's interesting to me is, though, that when we talk about passing and what it means, when Nick is going through this list of like all these great passing, it's like, are we not factoring in those types of plays that Lamar could do? And the way how football's played right now, I'm just kind of like, what's a more important skill set? What if a quarterback couldn't even remotely do what Sean McVay described that Stafford did? That it's just like, like, let's just say there's a quarterback that just can't do that at all. It's just like impossible for him. He's just like, I just can't do it. It's not the way how I operate. but he can do something like what Lamar just did. It's like, which would you pick? What's more important? And we know that answer. We know that answer. And it's just like, again, I welcome the whole being backed into a corner of trying to be like, all right, let's take away the mobility, let's take away this, because it's thought-provoking, it's interesting, it's fun. There's two kinds of people. Some people hate the type of conversations of like, well, Shaq and LeBron can never play together, like Shaq and Jokic on the same team would never work. And it's just like, we're just having fun. We're just having conversations. Like, people sometimes take those conversations like too personally. There's some people that just like can't do it, don't want to talk about it. And there's some people that want to talk about it all the time. It really seems pretty binary at that point. A lot of times we have these conversations. We had a lot of these conversations last offseason where it was like, if Josh Allen played for the Chiefs, if Lamar Jackson was on the Chiefs, if Patrick Mahomes played for the Panthers. And like I said, some people are like, they have fun with those conversations, and other people are like, this is the dumbest conversation ever. This is so dumb. And it's just like, all right, well then, I don't watch it. I don't know what to tell you. And to me, that's what these types of conversations more are about. This type of conversation is, what if Lamar Jackson played for the Philadelphia Eagles? What if Lamar Jackson was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs? What if Patrick Mahomes was drafted to the Houston Texans or something, the Cleveland Browns? It's just like, that to me is where this type of conversation falls into more than anything. Although probably with a little bit more stakes involved, because you're talking about a true technical skill, obviously, that you need, obviously, as a quarterback. But I do think we're at this point where we're still trying to figure out, though, like, how much does some of this matter? Because if we continue to kind of take it to the extreme, if you can do something like what Lamar just did there, which is unbelievable, just like how I took it to the extreme where we say, let's take away Stafford's skill in that regard. And, how much does that matter now for a quarterback? If we took away what Lamar could do in that, but then we say, but then he, the quarterback, can't do what Lamar can do, but now he also, or he can do what Lamar can do, but he can't, he can't go through his progressions at a high level rate. Like he leaves the pocket too soon. He's always he can't quite throw accurately enough. He's checking down way too frequently, right? Like, whatever it may be, and you're just like, all right, so this guy can do this amazing thing, but he struggles with some of this other stuff. Like, that's why it's always this spectrum of trying to figure out what's kind of this balance, which is what's so interesting, that we have such great quarterbacks: Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. And the reality is that they all do things so differently. I mean, even three quarterbacks, Lamar, Josh, and Mahomes, who have obviously been tagged as dual threats, mobile quarterbacks and whatnot, they all go about it so differently. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen's mobility is night and day different. It's like, it's crazy to even remotely consider them mobile quarterbacks when it's just like, it's like saying a Ferrari and a BMW are both cars. It's like, yeah, they are, but they serve completely different purposes. Same with Patrick Mahomes, definitely, as well, who's obviously mobile, but like not even close to that of a Lamar or Josh Allen. So it's just like these conversations always, it's like the more you kind of keep talking about it, the more it just kind of goes all over the place. But this is the other clip that I wanted to kind of also highlight, and it involves Jalen Hurts. And I think Mark Sanchez just does such a beautiful job of explaining this, and Lamar Jackson falls under this category as well. So this clip is Mark Sanchez on the Herd talking about Jalen Hurts and a play in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think he does such a perfect job here. So take a listen.
This is going to take a little longer. He gets to the top of his drop, and you're going to see there goes the shallow chasing the two-man combination. So that's going to come right into his vision. He can keep his eyes to the right. But he has such good feel in the pocket, knowing when it's man-to-man, that if he sees a rush lane, this dude is gone. And he gets to top speed fast. He's already looking away from Goddard before he breaks on his route. Manning, Brady, Breeze, Goff, Stafford, all these guys, that ball goes to Goddard. It's a tight window throw. The ball goes to Goddard. Jalen Hurts, he kills you on a 3rd and 5 and scrambles for 19. I mean, those were some of
and that is the point.
His biggest plays in the game, as he just erased those 3rd downs with his leg. Yeah, and the defense is like, we're in position. We're forcing him to make tight window throws, and this guy just tucks the ball.
And so that's an aspect that Lamar Jackson can bring. And when you can do that, you are going to make some of these other throws at a lower rate than a Goff, Breeze, Brady, whoever. Because they lack that skill set to be able to use their legs. And, when you look, I'll show you. This is where Goddard is, okay? And so Jalen will, obviously tuck and run and take off for 17, 18 yards, whatever it was. Or it's going to be a brutally difficult tight window throw that would have either been batted down. Who knows, really knows. It's not going to be a high percentage throw here. And even if it does, this is on 3rd down, can easily be short. Easily be, because it's all going to depend on, does Dallas Goedert fall forward? Does he get, it's just like, you don't really know. But instead, Jalen now takes it for a guaranteed 1st down and more. And so someone like Lamar Jackson is going to be able to do that with such a higher degree of success than anything else. And again, you're now getting a bigger play out of something, a more reliable and more guaranteed play, in terms of like at least like the conversion for the 1st down. And yet that now takes away from a moment where if this was Drew Brees or something, we would say, look at that throw by Drew Brees. So it's not to say that Lamar Jackson can't make that throw or that Jalen Hurts can't make that throw. But the argument here is that that's not their play. That even if they could make that throw at the rate of a Drew Brees, they shouldn't, because their legs you're going to get a bigger play. It's like saying I got A.J. Brown open down the field for a 35-yard pickup, or I could throw a 6-yard check down. And it's like, well, both plays are there, but like a coach would be like, why did you check it down? Why did you check that down to Saquon? What are you doing? Hey, look where AJ is. That's a 30-yard pass. That's a touchdown. What are you doing? Right? Like that, just because we got positive yards, even if we just converted the 1st down, a coach would be like, all right, it was good you got the 1st down, but like, why are your eyes missing this? Or I can see that you clearly saw AJ open, but you didn't throw it to him. Why did you skip over that, right? Like it would be like, we have to figure this out here. And so in a world where all quarterbacks can do what Jalen and Lamar can do, and, like I said, it's always going to be some degree of a spectrum. They'll be like, even if now someone like Jalen makes that throw, and even if it's successful, it's not hard to imagine that you're going to have a coach who's going to be like, bro, the lane was open for you to run. That's a 16-yard pickup. No, 15, 18-yard pickup. Like, come on. We got it. Got to use your legs in that moment. But it's funny because, like I said, if you're going to be doing this with the Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Stafford, Goff, whatever, like that conversation is obviously not even remotely had. And so it does make sense that a Lamar Jackson is going to rely on that aspect of his game so much more. And so when you also do that now at a higher rate, also your ability to make that throw to Dallas Goedert will most likely be, sacrifice is too strong, compromised, will most likely be not as sharp, not as successful as the Goffs, the Breezes of the world, because that is their only play. Like I said in my previous video, it's like if they don't make that play, make that throw, and deliver it accurately, well, then they are not indeed Drew Brees in the first place. They are not Tom Brady. They are not Matthew Stafford. And if they're not those types of players, well, then they become Kirk Cousins. And then it's just like, so like that's what makes those types of quarterbacks special. And so again, it's not to say that Lamar Jackson can't make those throws, because he obviously can. But there would be a strong reason to believe that Well, one, we just know for a fact he's not making those throws at the same rate that someone else is, because he has other tools in his toolbox, whereas those other quarterbacks don't. But also, he most likely does not deliver it at a high enough success rate as the Drew Breeses, the Tom Brady's. And that is okay. That's what I keep trying to emphasize. That is okay. That is totally okay. There's a reason why a Jalen Hurts is able to have a significantly better Super Bowl performance than, quite frankly, than Stafford or Joe Burrow when they played each other. And we're not going to do the whole mix and match of like, well, what about this O-line and this defense and that? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just in a vacuum, Jalen Hurts was able to play better in both of these Super Bowls because of his skill set, because of the versatility of his game. Like we see with Lamar Jackson, you know, obviously we haven't seen it in a Super Bowl, but like we've seen, you know, game in and game out. And I get what Nick is also kind of saying of like, listen, because of a quarterback can do stuff like this, the defenses have to, you know, deal with you differently. And it's like, okay, well, we can't knock Lamar Jackson for that. And defenses do have to handle you differently. And that is why sometimes certain passing stats can be inflated to a degree, and it's why I don't live and die by all these stats though. Because the original clip, not the original clip, but one of the clips that like Colin Cowherd showed, where they showed like the passer ratings, it's like, right, like I'm pretty sure you have Russell Wilson and like Romo or something, like, you know, like above Tom Brady, and it's just like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me, right? Like it's just like that's kind of crazy then. And so it kind of highlights some of the flaws in stats in the first place. But like I said, this conversation needs to be more framed as the Josh Allen playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, Patrick Mahomes playing for the Los Angeles Rams, like those types of conversations. If we switched Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen on their teams, like, would Josh Allen have 3 Super Bowls and would Patrick Mahomes have none? Like, that's more of what this conversation here is, more than anything. Because at the end of the day, if someone like Lamar Jackson's mobility opens up more opportunity for him, whether it be because he can use his legs to obviously just pick up, like I just showed you with Jalen Hurts, or because now defenses have to handle him differently, so that opens up the passing game in a way that a Stafford does not get that benefit from. It's like, that's all well and good to kind of have those conversations, and that's fine, and that's interesting and thought-provoking, and it's fine to reach all the various conclusions, right? Like I say this to Jalen Hurts fans all the time. It's like, Joe Burrow is a better passer than Jalen Hurts. Stafford is a better passer than Jalen Hurts, and that's okay. And that's okay. You know, which is totally fine. But you could make the argument in a Super Bowl right now, I'm taking Jalen Hurts over, you know, a Stafford, Burrow, Goff, you know, whatever it may be. And that's okay. Like, so it's just, it just shows the nuance of these conversations. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're talking about the quarterback as a whole. And so it's just like, whatever gifts or luxuries that an individual quarterback can have when trying to evaluate them, it's like, that has to be part of it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just like kind of how I rip the people who wanted to take away. They're like, take away the tush push, and Jalen Hurts doesn't have this, and it's just like, you can't do that. That's like, you're just trying to remove a big chunk of his game. And so it's like, when you're trying to evaluate a quarterback, and that's why I push back when Danny Parkins, I think it is, he was like, the number one job of a quarterback is to throw the ball. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. The number one job of a quarterback is to run the offense. That is the number one job of a quarterback. It's not even to win, because it's just, you know, that's, if you lose, then you're saying that then the quarterback didn't do a good enough job, and that's not the case. It's to run the offense. It's to execute the offense. That is the number one job. And again, I'm okay with saying, well, who's more mobile? Who's more mobile? And this would make a little bit more sense, like Brock Purdy or Baker Mayfield, right? It's like, we can have those conversations. They can be fun. But when we start talking about passing and this and that, like, it just becomes just a burning hot stove that just is easy to get burned. But I just encourage people to have a little bit more loose and fun with these types of conversations, which is why I keep emphasizing and comparing it, that like, These conversations are not like value judgments on any individual. It's just, how would Lamar Jackson do if he was drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles? Would he have multiple Super Bowl wins? You know, like, it's just like, that's what these conversations are more than anything. But I do think that when we kind of show like the clip from Mark Sanchez talking about what Jalen Hurts did in that Super Bowl and how these other traditional quarterbacks would not do that, and they're making that throw. They're attempting that throw at the very least. And seeing what Lamar Jackson did against the Cincinnati Bengals in that, you know, absolutely amazing play, and what and what McVay is highlighting like an unbelievable play from Stafford, and what does this all mean to be in terms of what it means to be a great quarterback, but then in some of these situations, what it means to be a great passer, because someone will question Jalen Hurts' passing ability, yet if he makes that pass to Dallas Goedert, it chips away at the narrative of him not being a great passer, and yet there's a better play for him to be made clearly, as we see that it's going to lead to more yards, more backbreaking, and now it forces the defense to be like, what the heck? What do we do here? In a way that a Stafford or Drew Brees is not necessarily facing. And just because the quarterbacks like the Lamars, the Jalen Hurtses of the world, are going to throw less, and they rely more on efficiency to kind of show like why they're gifted passers, doesn't mean that they're not up there. But the last point that I'll say is like, the other problem in this conversation is like, people keep getting these conversations twisted where it's like, if you say Stafford is a better pure passer than Lamar Jackson, people take that as you're saying Lamar Jackson is a bad passer, or not good, or not great, or saying Stafford is better than Lamar Jackson at what Sean McVay outlined in that clip, that somehow you're saying that Lamar Jackson is incapable of making that play or doing that. And that's not the conversation. That's not the conversation at all. It's just, this is sports where we are constantly ranking and rating and evaluating these players right now. And so there's that's probably one of the benefits of a Madden, just because like all those sports games from the jump, like you could see where it gives you like accuracy, speed, strength, you know, like whatever it is, because there's just different attributes and different levels of those for any given player, whether you're playing like a baseball game, basketball game, football, whatever. And it's just like, that's how it is. And the reality is, what people also don't really like to acknowledge is that they really vary a lot more season to season. Like, nothing's really that static. Lamar Jackson has undeniably been a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes over these last couple of years. But yeah, obviously we know the vast majority of people are going to say Patrick Mahomes is better than Lamar Jackson. And both statements are 100% fair, are 100% on the table, and are completely acceptable opinions, right? And yet we still kind of get these things twisted in such an intense dynamic. And so I really wanted to do a follow-up to that initial video and kind of and talk about it a little bit more deeply, and kind of just use various clips kind of highlighting the different styles of passing that we could say, obviously, you know, limited in time, but then also kind of why certain situations like a Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts are just going to throw less, why it's actually a positive for their game, and why when other quarterbacks who would make that type of throw then kind of get elevated strictly about passing, but then we don't pull them down, right? We'll say Lamar Jackson doesn't make that throw, but, you know, and he runs instead. But yet, if Stafford was in that Super Bowl and makes that throw and has that lane, no one's showing the tape and saying, gosh, if Stafford made that tight window throw to Dallas Goedert and they were short of the first down, now they have to punt it. Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts would have ran and they would have gotten the first down and converted. And it's just like, we don't penalize those quarterbacks. So it's like, that's why the conversation, like I said, if you keep talking, it just will continue to get messier and messier and messier. So, but those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Lamar Jackson being an all-time great passer in the NFL, and what that even means? Let Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.